The slow match, as I said, is a piece of cotton clothesline. Now, you'll find some clothesline has nylon reinforcement down it. Some of it has fiberglass woven through it. If it's got fiberglass woven through it, forget it. Don't even bother with it. If it has nylon lines, piece of nylon, some nylon strands down the center, what you do is you take and pull back enough to get your hands on the nylon portion. You skin it back, pull the nylon out of it, and use just the cotton part. It is possible in some hardware stores to still get pure cotton clothesline, but it's not easy. What you do is you take the clothesline, cut it into long 10 feet hunks or whatever size you want to store, and you mix up a solution of sodium nitrate and water. You take a gallon container, half fill the container with water, and then you take sodium nitrate. Now you can get that in a lot of drugstores. We'll have it on the shelf. Others will get it for you by order. What you order is chili saltpeter. Don't mix it in with your sandwich for the day, but mix it in with the water. Stir it very thoroughly. Take the clothesline that you're going to use after you pull any nylon out of it. If the clothesline has what looks to be starch in it, to stiffen it, if it looks a little stiff because it's new, it's got starch in it, what you do is you take and you soak that in plain water, or you put it in the washing machine, and you wash it with soap and water, and then you take it out of that. After you've removed the starch from it, you take and you put it in the bucket, which has chili saltpeter and water in it. Now you want to use, for a half a gallon of water, you want to use probably 4 to 6 ounces of chili saltpeter in the solution. No, Bill, thank you. No, I was going to bring that up earlier for battle with the back section of the room, but they opted out. This basically is what slow match. This,
you say 4 to 6 ounces, and how much water?
Half a gallon. About half a gallon of water. Now you let that sit. This is a piece of, this particular material is a piece of cotton line available through the United States Navy, I presume. But at any rate, clothesline or something of this nature will work fine as long as it's cotton and will burn. You let it sit in the solution. The gentleman here has some regular clothesline. Okay, both are fine. Make sure you get the starch out first, but you let it sit for 24 hours in this solution until it becomes saturated with the sodium nitrate and water. Then you take it out. You hang the clothesline up to dry. Let it sit for 24 hours to dry, and then coil it up. Now what I generally do is after I have let it dry for 24 hours, I'll take a spaghetti sauce jar. Some kind of a jar, a glass jar that has a tight lid, that has a sealable lid, like a baby food jar for a small piece. A larger piece, you get like one of these Rinaldi spaghetti sauce jars that has a tight screw-on cap, and you take and coil it down inside the jar, fit it all inside the jar, and then seal the cap down tight. Now the reason for this is if you keep your slow match in a powder box, and the powder box is with the gun, or if it's in a cellar where it's damp, or if it's outdoors. If you get caught in a rainstorm in the field, if it's in the jar, it's going to stay watertight, airtight. It's going to stay airtight, and no water will get in there. What you don't want to do is get moisture into the into the slow match. The reason being that the sodium nitrate will pick up water like crazy. It'll pick up moisture, and you get a damp one and it won't light on. So make sure that you keep it sealed up tight and just before you're ready to fire, take it out of the jar, put it in the lid stock, and use it then. Any questions on this area? Anywhere from 4 to 6 ounces of chili saltpeter, and if you live near a town where there's an awful lot of equestrian activity, people have a lot of horses, they use it for an emetic for horses and a diuretic for horses. So it's easy to locate there. Any drugstore can order it for you after a few days, go back and pick it up, and there's no problem there. So it's readily available.
You can buy that kind.
You can buy that? Okay. I have not seen it myself, but there are a couple of places. There's a rope place in Woburn. There's a Crow Rope Company up in Maine. They claim they still make pure cotton, but it's pure cotton mixed with nylon. So just be careful what you're buying in the drugstore. Yes?
If you go to a boat store, you can get pure cotton.
Boat store?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there's another place. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, why don't we take a break at this point for coffee and cookies, and we'll come back, cover a couple more little...
I can, but it's no pain in the butt, so I carry a package of Swan back. But I've done it. It's really a pain in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
Please, go ahead.
When I was
I'm with the English Civil War Society Black Horse Regiment.
really?
We're with the ECW out of England, but they're very 17th century groups.
And we were over in the
Right.
two, I think it was actually
Down here by the
Which I've never heard of. So the two ways to defend yourself if you can't reload is to club your musket, or to just drop your musket while you're shooting and go for it.
This is
Tomahawk, anything for close quarter combat. You would pistols are so hard to come by in the 17th century. On the musket.
Take all those certificates and carefully, well, bring them down so I can present them down there.
Then
Okay. What? You can start out. Yeah, it should be just about anyhow. Okay, now, as Bill asked me to point out, you can always tell an artillerist because he's got burn holes in his shirt. And this was not from, in this case, aluminum foil. This was just powder burn. So you can always tell a happy motorcyclist because of the flies in his teeth. Well, you can always tell a happy artillerist because his shirt's all burned. All right, now we're going to get into the last phase of the instructional period, and from here we will discuss tools. After that, we will go down, dry fire several times on one of 5 pieces. Those of you, there were 2 organizations that brought their pieces with them, I believe, Connecticut and you gentlemen from both Connecticut groups have brought their own piece. They will work with their own piece and work their own crews. The rest of you will use the other 3 pieces that we have available, mine, Bob Paulson's, and also the piece belonging to the 1797 Marines. Okay, to finish up, I've showed you the ladle. The ladle is nothing but a scoop to reach into a barrel of powder, get enough on there to be the right amount for the projectile, go down the barrel, churn, shake, remove. Now that's the action. Now I want you to notice that At no time does my hand leave my body. But my thumbs are always pointed downrange. I want to make sure that they never leave my body. If anything happens that you put something down the barrel and your hands are pointed in this fashion with the thumbs pointing down the barrel, I can practically guarantee that your thumbs will leave your body. Save them, they might be able to put them back on again. Yeah, but we will have to take you off the line for...
It's only for show, this tool.
This tool is generally for show, that's right. Just to show it has authentic history to it. And if you are firing howitzer that has a chamber in it, then it's indispensable. You've got to have one of these. There's no other way to get a powder charge down there without taking your life in your own hands. So it is necessary if you're firing a howitzer with a reduced, that has a small chamber in the back. Some howitzers don't have them. Some of them are really reduced cannon barrels, in which case you can load those in the standard manner. But if you have one with a reduced chamber, you've got to have one of these. Going down the line in order of use. I wish I had mine up here. I hate to do this to you, Bill, but I don't like either of these rammers. The reason I don't like them is they have sharp shoulders right here. But I'll use it for demonstration purposes only. I'll show you why, when we get down to the firing, why I don't like these specific ones. This is a rammer. It's used to lightly push the charge down the barrel, then pack in the wadding real tight and ram it down to ram down the projectile. It's used to put things down the barrel that you want to get down there and seal real tight down the end of the barrel, and that's what these are used for. They're a block of wood. They are slightly smaller diameter than the barrel, than the bore. The ones that I use have a taper on them, so that at this point here they taper down the barrel so that they are smooth. Now the reason for that is when you are ramming, if you ram and push that powder down into a hot spark and the thing goes off while you've got your hands on it, and in point of fact I will show you it should be one hand only. While you are ramming that, if that charge goes off and pushes this rammer out, you want to be able, the reason for pointing your thumbs and the reason this is tapered, is you want to force your hand open around it and it disappears somewhere downrange. You don't want to hold on to it because it won't, you can't hold on to it. And what it's going to do is take digits with it. This is a piece of digital equipment, all right? It is digit remover, in fact. If the thing goes off and you're trying to hold it, that's why I don't like this one. It has the shoulder on it. If that goes off, it's going to rip the whole palm of your hand off. If you have a taper to it so that it's smooth, you might get some skin off of your hand. You might burn some skin off of your hand. But you're going to keep all your fingers and all your thumbs. So when you're ramming, you get your face back away from it. In fact, you should be ramming from the backward direction. You should be ramming behind you so that if anything does go off, you don't have your face up front. If you're ramming like this, two-handed, your face is down at the barrel. If anything goes off at that point in time, you're going to get the flash burn. If you're ramming this way, you're going to get it. They'll be replacing skin off of your backside, but at least it's not quite as destructive as it would be hitting your front. Yes?
You were mentioning the fact that the taper in, is there a purpose to having a shoulder there, or is it just...
No, this is, don't let Bill hear me, but this is fully constructed from a safety standpoint, okay? This one, the same thing. Now, on the opposite end of this, and The Marines copy the Navy system of generally putting two tools on one handle. I prefer separate individual tools for each piece, because that way each person on the crew has his own particular accoutrement, and he works that accoutrement, and he doesn't have to remember which way he's trying to turn the thing to put it down the barrel. In other words, during the middle of an action, if things get busy and he tries to use the wet sponge to ram with, not so good. You might fire it off, you might not, but you really don't want to do that. You want to keep the sponge for cleaning, not for ramming. So that's why I personally prefer individual tools for each operation. Rammer. Now,
One man, one job.
one man, one job, insofar as it's possible. If the crew is working together, you can do it with fewer people, but you've got to remember that you've got to take your time. You can do it with two people, but the two people have to be well coordinated, they have to work together, and I would not do it with two except in an emergency. There's a situation where you committed to firing and the other three guys didn't show up. Two can handle it, but they've got to work slow and they've got to work carefully. You can't rush it. You can't rush it under any circumstances, but even more so if people are working two instruments. But if you have two instruments, at least you put them down, you pick up the right one. You grab this, and you might not be sure which end you want to put in first. So, for safety's sake, each instrument, each accoutrement should be on its own handle. This is a sponge. It is not called a swab, as the literature will point out. A swab is a sailor. A sponge is a means, a lamb's wool or wool bonnet that is just slightly larger, without squeezing, it's slightly larger than the barrel diameter, so that you ram down, and when it goes down the barrel, when you push it down the barrel, it sweeps everything in the barrel and collects it and pulls it out. Now, it may not pull everything out, we'll cover that instrument later. But this is a sponge. It should be wool, lamb's wool, with the size piece I have, something that fits very nicely if you have a 2 3/16 diameter barrel. Something that works very nicely is a heavy lamb's wool paint roller. Works very nice. Staple a paint roller onto the barrel, onto the rod, and make sure that the end is well covered and stapled down. Don't try to use epoxy. You can use epoxy, but staple it just to make sure. A worm. A worm is a piece of twisted iron, twisted in such a fashion that it performs like a corkscrew. There are two blades on it, there are 2 points on it. If you'll notice, there are 2 points on it. Those points are moved outward so that when they go in the barrel, when they go down the barrel, they are to be squeezed. In other words, they are slightly larger than the barrel diameter, just a bit, so that you can push it down, and these points will stay up against the outside wall as it goes all the way down. When you get it down to the end of the barrel, you put it in, and noting the direction of spiral, you work this thing, turn it so that you are piercing anything which might be down the end of the barrel, and quite often you'll come out with a baggy end. Or you'll come out with a piece of powder bag, whatever you use to put the powder down in. If you're firing foil, you're going to come back out with foil, but you've got to twist it in such a way that it picks up and punctures whatever it is that it's going to be bringing out. Okay? And that gets turned at least 2 revolutions and then pulled out. This piece here is used for changing the angle at which the piece is pointed. There's a small hole in the back of the trail, in the back transom. There's a small hole which has a socket that this will fit into, and this is used as a lever to change the angle at which the barrel is pointed. That basically covers all of the accoutrements, really. The basic ones are the rammer, sponge, worm. The auxiliary one would be the ladle. Remember, every time something goes down that barrel, your thumbs must always be pointed downrange. Not down the barrel, down the range. So that if anything goes off, your hand will open while the shaft of the accoutrement passes through it, or while the accoutrement passes through your hand. Your hand is forced to open. You might have to replace the skin, but that replaces much more rapidly than thumbs or digits. If you do it the wrong way and you're ramming this way, then I'll guarantee you're going to lose a thumb. I guarantee you there's a very good possibility you're going to lose the first finger. The rest of them are entirely dependent on Mother Nature. And believe me, she can be a mean mother if you don't obey the rules. Okay, so that covers the accoutrements. What I would like to do is to have all of us meet down at dry dock number 2, which is the first one you walk out the gate. Just beyond that gate is dry dock number 2. There's a lightship in there. I think it's the Nantucket lightship is in there right now. We will be firing towards that area. We have to be off of federal property, which terminates at the front gate. Bill? Bill? Okay, I guess we're just about all set. It would be best if everybody stayed in groups. What we will do is break up into teams of 6.
You gotta drive over or you gotta pull?
I've got to drive over. I'm not going to pull that. I'm getting too old for that, Barbara.
Bucket, pass me the bucket. I don't like the way that bucket's leaking. All right, let's move it off. Many hands, watch your fingers. Let me get the back end of it. Okay, down.
sure is. I ain't gonna say that.
One experienced person can keep an eye on each piece so that they see anything wrong. Why don't you keep an eye on this one here? Move back. And then I'll just come possibly get a copy of that? Well, hold on now. We'll have to find
Sergeant. Yes, sir. Do you think organized? We need the powder box, sir.
right.
Now, what are we going to be doing as far as position shots? Run just with squibs and then fire?
We're going to run dry for about 3 or 4 passes. So everybody has a chance. Probably 5, so everybody has a chance to dry fire each position.
I have my charges protected in aluminum foil. I'll have them uncovered.
Just
plastic
uncover
down
them up.
for you.
Bring them up to the piece.
Okay.
Uncover. They are baggies underneath, right?
Yeah, they're baggies. The thing is, I do the aluminum foil because I worry about holes in the barrel. That's my setup.
Yeah, fine. You're down your way. You fire anyway.
Up here, I'm doing it by your book.
Right.
And we can fire quicker.
Yes, I did. They're in the box. Get over in your positions. Folks, line up with him. He's the man who's in charge of this operation.
Some people wouldn't mind that circumstance at all. First off, we are here in a safety course run by the Massachusetts Council of Minutemen and Militia. I want to introduce to you, out of uniform, the commander of that group, Major General John H. Vann.
Ladies and gentlemen.
John is the commanding general of the Massachusetts Council. Incidentally, John, see Mark before you leave.
Okay, absolutely.
Now, apropos to the comment I just made, the certificates that you receive here, as far as any legal weight, they are good in the state of Massachusetts in a Massachusetts Council-sponsored event. They are proof that you have taken a safety course, but out of state, how much weight they will grant you, I do not know. It depends on the state, it depends on the state regulations, and whoever happens to be enforcing them. So I'm not trying to, by any means, tell you that the card that you get here will guarantee you can fire anywhere in the world. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that in a Massachusetts Council-sponsored event, it is permission to fire. And I might add that at the discretion of the master gunner in charge, that can be revoked for violations. Your card won't be pulled, but you can be asked to leave the field for violations. And I might add one very, very good reason to have your right to fire in a given event removed is for alcoholic beverages. They have absolutely no place whatsoever in the artillery or in the musket company. Afterwards, get bombed if you want. You got a way home or you can get back to your tent. That's irrelevant. The fact remains that you do not touch alcoholic beverages prior to firing artillery or while you are firing, because that's a violation. You're gonna wind up off the field. I'll guarantee at any place I am, you'll be off the field if you smell like you've been drinking. Goodbye. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, Bill, will you hold those two things? As I mentioned earlier, a ram should have a fillet on it such that it's tapered from the ram to the shaft with a smooth taper so that your hand can slide over it easily. Again, thumbs down the barrel, down range, not down the barrel, down the range, away from the barrel, thumbs pointing away from the barrel. If anything happens and that piece goes off, your hands will fly open. You lose skin, but you won't lose digits. Okay, I mentioned a red stripe. This particular red stripe is placed appropriately so that with this ram all the way down the barrel on my piece, this red line will be at the very end of the barrel. If there's something down that barrel that keeps it from bottoming, that stripe is going to be further out, so you can see the red stripe. You know there's something down there. If it's right at the edge, you know it's clear. Okay? Several of my instruments have the red stripe on them. The rammer is by far the most important, simply because the rammer is the first piece used to verify that the barrel is clear and that there's nothing down there. Can you slide the grasshopper forward here so I can use it for demonstration purposes? Yeah. Lance, you're going to have to milk that cow again. The milk's coming out of the bucket.
Yeah, I brought extra.
Okay, now I might mention in the water, we are going to be using, some of us will be using salt water, brackish water, which is not the best thing in the world for the, however it'll dry out. The cannon barrel will not rust through, unlike automobile paneling. But you might want to add a few ounces of vinegar, either cider vinegar or white vinegar, in plain water, which acts as an astringent and helps as a cleaning agent. It also keeps the, it was used historically so that the water would not start growing algae over it. Normally you wouldn't be using it under those circumstances, but if you want to be authentic, throw in a little cider vinegar. All right, now. Woo! That one's quite a bit longer than my piece. Mine, it comes out to right there. Now, the first thing we're going to do, whenever you come up to start a firing sequence. Okay, it's double striped.
One from one end, one from the other.
Oh, all right. In this case, the first thing we do when setting up to fire a round or to fire a sequence is to clear the tube. Now you'll notice if you come up close, you can see that the line is right in line with the very edge of the barrel, which means there's nothing down there. Also, I'm getting a ringing. That ringing sound tells me there's nothing foreign down the barrel. I'm getting a metallic ring. The barrel is clear. Now remember that you're working amongst a team of 5 or more people. You give a command or you do something, you let everybody in that crew know that it has been done. Sir, the barrel is clear. Yeah. Apropos of that, 2 weeks ago when we were firing at our installation, we found that our other piece, gray, which was stored in the garage up at the behind the Harnden Tavern, apparently some squirrels decided that that was a good place to store acorns. There was a layer about that thick of acorns in the back of the barrel, which we found because it didn't ring. Okay, now, the first thing is to clear the barrel. Now, the next operation, the linstock man thumb stalls the vent hole. Now, one of your crew with a, okay, this kind doesn't look very authentic, but it's authentic enough to be safe, and that's really all you need. Now, he is going to thumb stall the piece. He puts his thumb down in and completely covers the vent. The glove, the leather helps to seal the entire piece, to seal the entire hole off. Now what happens is, when you start loading, you'll get a back pressure out of here, and you want to make sure that you keep that as tight as possible. The first thing that happens is a powder charge will go down the barrel in a baggie. Yeah, yeah. All right, where's my crew?
Marsh?
Marsh?
Masha?
The actions involved. You two want to get gloves and give us a hand here, please? All right. Yes. All right. As I mentioned earlier, everybody keeps handing me instruments that are double-ended, and I prefer single-ended instruments because people know what they're doing. So what I'm going to do is pass these off a bit. Okay. Just take a second. I want to get... See, I've got the sponge is also... It has a mark on it. Okay. I've got this. I've got my own set here. I'll hold on to these. Peter? All right, now the first thing that's going to happen is the linstock, or I'm sorry, the pick man who operates the pick, thumb stalls the vent hole. On command, the rammer will clear the piece. Clear the piece.
Piece is clear.
All right. That way everybody knows it's clear, so sound off when you perform an operation. The next thing to happen is the powder will come down. The powder monkey will come forward with a powder charge. In this case, again, leather gloves are a not flame proof, but a flame retardant container for powder in baggie form, or you can have it in aluminum foil form. When you get this far, the first thing that happens in aluminum foil is it gets opened, the baggie is removed, and carefully placed on the end of the barrel. Now you'll notice she's using 2 fingers. At no time does her hand cover the end of the barrel. Use 2 fingers only to hold the charge. The rammer comes in behind and lightly presses against the charge and pushes it down barrel. Now, if you're going to use a projectile or wadding, the projectile would then be placed by the powder monkey. The charge or the projectile or the wad would then be placed in the same manner, holding with 2 or 3 fingers, and you might use 2 wads, and then at that point it's rammed down tight to make a very tight seal between the powder and the outside world, so that the outside world, the wads are pushing up tight against the powder. The next command will be pick and prime. The vent hole is uncovered, the pick is run down, and his face is back away from the vent picking action. He does not twist the pick, because if he does, he might pick up the baggie and pull it up the vent hole with him, in which case all bets are off. You ram down several times, do not twist. Down, up and down, and then out it comes, and the squib or the powder column is poured at that point, and then his hand covers that powder charge until just before ready to fire. Now, the next command will be prepare to fire, at which time the pickman steps back. The person with the linstock comes forward, and he holds the linstock as far out as he can so that he stays as far away from the fire as possible. With a lit linstock, he reaches down and keeps it just slightly away from the charge, from the squib. At the point fire, he then pushes the linstock down, ignites the squib, the powder charge goes off. Immediately, without command, the pickman comes up, covers the vent hole, seals it up tight, and the man with the sponge operator comes in and takes and rams a wet sponge down the barrel. Now that has to be wet, but it doesn't have to be sopping wet. You want to wet the barrel going down. You don't want to completely soak the base of the barrel. Okay, thank you. We're going to have a prime and load here. At any rate, the next operation, automatically, the worm in. Now, the worm will have a piece of cloth on the end of it. The piece of cloth is to dry that barrel as it goes down, picking up any excess moisture. The worm is used to twist it in order to pick up any baggy residue or any residue that might be in the barrel. It gets pulled out and dumped, and then the piece is again ready to fire. Now, these two operations of sponge and worm are done automatically. They're done immediately upon fire. The vent hole is kept plugged until we're ready to load again, unless you're going to cease operations. If you are, then the vent hole is covered so that nothing can be put down it. The tompion is put back in again, and it's set to go until you're ready to fire again.
Can I say one?
Yeah.
If you hear any air escaping out of the vent hole, tell the person with the sponge to pull it back out and start all over again. Because that means you may have pushed the spark up into the touch hole.
You want to
pull it out, you're going to pull the spark back out into the barrel.
Plus the fact that you should run your vent pick down the hole just in order to make sure that it is clear. Okay, so that is one full sequence. Yes, Lance?
We use a double swab technique. Do you mind if I explain it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Some people, some organizations use a dry sponge, a wet sponge, dry sponge approach, and Lance is going to demonstrate that. It's an added safety feature, if you will.
This is why I run double-ended tools with our arms. And when we get to the point of actually having fired the gun, again, the thumb stall is cut. Immediately after, we run a worm down the barrel. This is to remove any debris or particulate material down the barrel. Followed by a dry swab, which now assures the barrel is clean and dried, and we're ready to go back to the next operation for land. It's a double safety procedure we use.
Okay, there's any added safety can't be wrong. Okay, now what I want to do is to move this piece back. I want each of these pieces manned with 6 people. Those of you who have gloves, get them out. If you don't have them, I have some spares. I want every person on a piece with gloves.
Bring it back about another 3 feet.
Naval
I'll take it back.
piece primarily used by Marines and Navy for igniting muzzle-loading cannon. It's a safety flare. It would be a 18th century. It's a flare which would be ignited. It's a very positive spark that would be used in place of linstock. Not something you'd want to use in the field necessarily, but certainly aboard ship, it's an ideal means of igniting cannon. Okay, so there's a bit of history for you. This is a port fire, and the handle, the top is a flare, which gets ignited. They will be using that down on the end pieces to ignite instead of linstock.
And I'm going to use this to light your slow match.
It'll also light the slow match.
Use the light.
Thank you. Next command will be powder up. Powder monkey, bring 1 charge and squib. Forward. Stay in the powder alleys. Do not use the linstock alleys. Bring powder forward. Rammers. Secure charges. Remember where your thumbs are. Going the wrong way.
Back front of the powder box.
The vent holes are not covered. I see a couple of vent holes are open. Where's the pick man with the vent hole? Okay. Goes up and down, not sideways. Keep your face back away from the pick and the vent hole. The squibs are placed in as soon as the vent is picked. The squibs are added or the column of powder is poured. Now the command goes back to the gun captain from the pick man. Ready to fire. stock prepared to fire. The next command will be fire. Now, in which case, the linstock man brings the linstock down, ignites it, and says, "Fire in the hole!" Fire! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! All right, now, the piece has now gone off. Immediately, cleaning the barrel.
Thumb stall automatically.
Thumb stall is covered. The vent is always covered when there's anything in that barrel.
You warm it. Come up, down the piece. Belt the other end.
All right, then the worm follows automatically. Don't wait.
Gun is clear. Yep. Command is piece is loaded, sir.
Pick and prime. Fire!
Fire in the hole!
Fire in the hole. The sponge is out. Let's go. Hurry up. Sponge up there in a hurry, immediately. Don't wait for anything to happen.
Worm.
That sponge is too wet.
Then dry sponge.
Now the worm. As soon as the sponge comes out, the worm goes down.
Sound the piece. Piece is ready to fire.
Okay, everybody,
Piece is clear.
rotate one
Either or.
position. Clockwise.
Piece is clear.
Piece is clear. Shout your commands back.
Piece is clear, sir.
Bill? Powder up!
Don't slam my rammer down hard.
Keep that covered. You want to keep that powder covered. Pick and prime. Prepare to fire.
Fire in the hole!
Wait till you get the command.
You had a good target, though.
Yeah, I bet.
First time
We all ready? Fire!
Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole.
Sponge is up. Followed immediately by worm.
Right sponge up. Clear the piece. Clear the piece is clear.
Rotate one position.
Piece is clear. Piece is clear.
Clear, Peter. Clear, Bill. Clear, Peter. Powder up.
One squib. Squib goes to rammer. Comes the other way, Bill. There you go. Gun is loaded.
Pick it.
Make sure you're doing this way. This way or this way?
Ready?
Sometimes you try to foil.
Pick and prime.
Then put the squib in. Put the squib in. You haven't got one now, but that's when you load the cannon. Insert it.
Prepare to fire.
Fire in the hole!
Keep your hand here until
Fire in the hole.
he's told you they're ready to fire.
Fire in the hole!
I said prepare to fire.
Gun is ready to fire, sir.
Prepare to fire already. Take back the boom. That's a boom. Prepare to fire. Fire!
Fire in the hole!
Sponges. Has everybody had a run at every operation yet? One more? Okay. As soon as the worm has gone through, rotate one position. I hear it.
Steve, you got the... You got
Switch
the piece.
Sound it.
Gloves on, gloves on. Powder up! Powder up.
Gun is clear.
Powder up.
Whip to the thumb stall. Gun is ready to fire.
Gun is clear. I mean loaded. Gun is loaded.
Oh, it isn't ready to fire.
This gun is loaded. And you put the squib in and cover it with your hands.
Ready to fire?
Yep. And a good signal is you put your other hand up. Right, step away.
Ready to prepare down there? Rose, ready? Fire!
Fire in the hole!
Fire in the hole!
Boom! Boom!
That was a delayed one over there.
Sponge up.
Now, everybody has had one position.
Thumb stall.
Everybody has been
Up.
there.
Tape side up.
Better to use your left hand. Where your face is. One more. You're gonna feel pressure there. Yeah.
Gun is loaded.
All set, gun one? Huh?
Size the charge.
1 inch.
Lance.
All pieces charged?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Pick and prime.
Feel it pierce the bag.
An extra ration of rum to the man that gets that seagull.
Hold up, Frank. The bag's on down front. Ram.
Ram.
Ram up.
Pick and prime.
Ready down there? Prepare to push
it down all those far.
Stand by.
Gun is ready to fire, sir.
Prepare to fire. Load up the back. Yeah. Fire!
Fire in the hole!
Fire in the hole!
Take it off, boy.
I'm gonna have it.
Hold up now. Clean your pieces and secure temporarily. We got to
Yeah, you gotta shake it off.
hang fire.
Just dip the end and then shake it off.
Where are the pieces? Prime.
Put your arm up. That's another signal because a lot of times you can't hear. When your hand is up, you know it's ready to fire.
Ready to fire.
Oh, you stay there. You're working here. You've got enough, right? Pick and prime. Good command. Good operation. Prepare to fire. Fire!
Fire in the hole! Clear the piece!
Got it?
Joe, what do you know? We're
One's got two ends. Kind of squeeze it tight.
Water up. Pick and fry.
Ready? Some go down further. Ready?
Ready to fire. Linstock man, one hand covering the vent hole, the pick in his hand elevated, or the linstock elevated.
Stock's elevated.
Prepare to fire. Fire in the hole!
Fire in the hole!
Fat baby.
It's pretty wet. You don't really have to right now.
Let's not make this a rodent fornication. Let's do it right.
Powder up!
Powder, squib up!
Right, tell people anytime they want to walk, go behind the powder
Go
box.
to Lance. Explain everything to
Any
Lance.
passage back and forth is behind the roll of powder boxes. Do not walk in the middle of a crew.
Got to take the foil off. Powder up.
Pick and prime.
Ram the charge. All the way down.
Go ahead with pick and prime, Dale.
Pick and prime. Squib as far down as she'll go. Your command to me is then, gun is ready to fire, sir.
Ready to fire, sir.
It's better keep that hand up.
Prepare to fire.
Now you step back.
Fire!
Fire in the hole! Red smoke! Pump small! As soon as that gun's fired, you come and you put your hand on that vent. Stay instead of filming. I can't get close to it.
guy. Get the guy on ramp.
You two switch.
I just did ram.
Okay.
Be powder monkey.
Yeah, that's.
As soon as
Search the
gun is
piece.
fired, the first thing you do is cover this vent, seal that hole. Yep.
Piece clear.
Keep your thumb on.
Search the piece.
Keep it on there until. On rapid charge. Get it prepared for fire.
All set, number one. Powder up. Powder up. Yeah, you didn't have a chance to yet. Saute pigeon.
Let's leave it there. Don't scare it away.
Pigeon shall not be used for wadding. Just one, sir. Too tough to scrape the feathers off.
It's loaded.
For the birds, isn't it, sir?
I gotta be funny, you know.
All set?
Piece is loaded.
Pick and prime. Pick and prime.
What are you doing? Pull that out.
Set, Bill.
We're ready.
Prepare to, as you were. Now let's get it all at once this time. Fire! Fire the hole!
Sponge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ram down the barrel. Clear piece. Nope.
Okay, this is the last round. Kathy! On the lip stop.
I haven't done that.
This is the last firing round. This one.
Where's the you put her?
Your fire.
Put the ram all the way down the barrel. Hard.
Ring the barrel. Powder up! Powder up! Ram that harder. Now one hander. Ram charge!
Yep.
Black feathery part of that thing. Touch the hole on the end of this.
Yep.
You put your pick hand up.
Prepare to fire.
Prepare to fire!
Prepare to fire.
I'm here with my thumb. I'm ready to go.
When you say fire. Fire in the hole, you just touch it off, okay?
give it a turn.
I got your back. Baby.
Thumbs down, Ransom.
Punch your
Right, Sponge.
Round the barrel.
Try swab it.
Secure up.
Even though this is a fairly safe tool to be working on cannon to get the practical stuff down range, no matter what position you're on.
The 7
Water is coming out at you. Some people put a little fence here. So if this thing comes out, it'll hit that. But as with a cannon, which it's not too bad if you stand behind it, this is dangerous with a mortar. On the linstock, because it's low to the ground, you don't want to use a short linstock, and you don't want to get too close to it. A nice long. We always dry sponge our mortar as well as wet sponge. Because of the angle, water tends to want to pool at the base of the barrel. And if water pools at the base of the barrel, you get incomplete combustion, you get powder in there, you get raw powder that's wet, that builds up and may eventually dry out, and you get an overcharge. And it's difficult to, but it's easy, you can always flip the mortar over to drain it if you have to. But we always dry sponge, we double sponge. Our drill's a little bit different, because we work with the Constitution and we were bound by some of their rules. We have to double sponge, we always double sponge. We use aluminum cartridges. We keep the cartridges in the aluminum when we place them in the barrel. We do that for a couple of reasons, because it supposedly avoids premature breakage of the cartridge, and it avoids static electricity buildup in the cartridges or anything around. So we do. That's why we do it. I'm not saying do it, I'm not saying don't. I'm saying that's why we do it. And when you do that, after it fires, you're left with what's left of the cartridge in the barrel. So you have to worm first. Because if you sponge first, you can't get the water from the sponge behind the aluminum to put the spark out. So you have to remove the aluminum so that you can put the sponge in and put the fire out if there's anything in it. If you did it the other way, then you'd be loading a hot cartridge down and possibly some embers. Also, we've come up with this little device. Sometimes you get a misfire. I don't think we had a misfire today. You may get a tube and the tube goes boom and the zing and the cartridge doesn't ignite. Well, a lot of people will come over here and, even with the cannon, you gotta sneak over here and pull that thing out real quick in case the gun goes off. We made this little stick with a slot in it so we don't go over to it. Just flip that thing out. We can take a new one and put a new one in here.
Powder monkey. Yeah, exactly.
Of course, if I use a new one, it might work. We place it in there, so we don't have to get near that. We did have a little end of a copper nail on there, which is falling out. And we take that, we just stick out about 1/4 of an inch, and we can place that little copper nail on the end of this squib and push it down and make sure it's seated in that cartridge. Then we don't have to get near it. And it's good with the mortar, because with the mortar, you've got to get down, and if something goes wrong, you can't get out of there quick. If the bigger you are, some people have to get down on their knee, and you don't have that chance to, the reflexes aren't as good as they are with a large gun. But even with a large gun, this is, just flip that thing right out of there. So we'll go through the little drill here. This is a mortar on a sea base, or it's the size of a 24-pound mortar. Mortars were sometimes used on ships like Constitution, but not very often. They were carried a lot and then brought ashore. A lot of these were used with exploding rounds. Like was mentioned in the class, you want to get it over something. Well, some of these were like a hand grenade, a hollow cast iron ball with a fuse in. Fuse was inserted first in the barrel. When you fired the thing, it lit the fuse and off it went. And as long as it left the barrel, you were all right. If it didn't, going up. And they'd fire inside or in the air, depending on how the gunner had the angle and the size of the charge. Like I said, this is more of a stationary base. There was a land base that was cut right down and much smaller than this, and you could drag the thing all over. It's supposed to be a two-man operation. 2 men with the mortar and 1 guy with the cartridge. That's why it's got 4 handles. And the thing is aimed. A lot of them, if you had a good gunner, it always stayed in that position, that angle, about 30 to 45 degrees. And you'd use a hand spike like this to aim it wherever you wanted. And if it was going too far forward, you put a smaller charge in. If it's going not far enough, then you'd put a bigger charge. Our mortar and our howitzer is the same caliber, which makes it nice. We can interchange the cartridges. Our squibs, for that reason, our squibs stick out a little more than normally because this barrel is much thicker than that barrel, and we like to use we could use either one. So they're made a little bit longer. They stick out quite a bit in the howitzer, and they stick about that much. And also, the more they stick out, the less you have to get down to it, and it's easier. It's worm. Worm. We have a few more little steps. We lengthen the drill out. Advance, powder. Load. Advance. Rammer. Ram. Hit. Cartridge. We're in a cannon. One of the most dangerous positions is ramming that charge down. For the mortar, it's a debate on whether it's more dangerous to ram the charge or to sit behind the vent. Prime, cartridge. Now sometimes the man, for safety reasons, will not stay there and keep his hand on he'll get out of the way. Ready? Stand by to fire. Fire in the hole! Stop, vent. Advance, worm. Now, if this worked right, you'll see the cartridge come out in almost one piece. Worm. Now, if we didn't worm first, we wouldn't be able to get water behind that. Worm. And at this point, the wormer is in charge. He's satisfied that he's gotten all that aluminum foil that he feels might be in there out. Advance, wet sponge. Sponge. We always call advance to everything before we actually do it, in case between the time the command is called and the task is actually done, a problem develops. You know, he could drop the match down or something like that, or something could happen, and at least he's not going through the motion. Get that second chance to make sure everything's all right. Advance, dry sponge. Sponge. Of course, he should have his other glove on, but he doesn't. And the sponger, with us, anybody that has anything in the barrel is in charge. He's in charge. So he feels that what he's doing is all right. Because if I think he's done it enough, and he feels that there's still fire or something in there, you know, I don't have that feel that he's got. 10 vent. Now he's just checking the vent. Now there's always a possibility that when you check the vent to make sure it's clear, there's a little spark in there, especially you with a thick barrel like this. This barrel's almost 2 inches thick. So the sponge water doesn't get up into the barrel. And when he does that, he could push a little spot back down in the barrel. So after he does that, I call wet sponge. Advanced wet sponge. Sponge. So if you push that down in the barrel, we'll get it out again. Advanced dry sponge. Sponge. Advance, cartridge. Load, cartridge. Advance, rammer. Ram. Hit, cartridge. Prime, cartridge. I don't care if it takes him all day to pick that cartridge and to put that prime in there. Yeah, that's critical, because that's where the misfire is going to happen. Stand by to fire. Fire in the hole! There's what's left of the squib. It landed over here. Stop, bend. Advance, worm. Worm.
They're going to be giving us the cards.
All our aluminum cartridges have a front and a back. They're only inserted in one way. The back end, the end that goes into the barrel always has an X on it, so they'll know that's the right end. That's the flat end that'll fit flat up against the board. The other side is a folded end, so when the charge ignites, it'll unfold the cartridge, and it'll tend to leave the aluminum in the barrel. Advance. Wet sponge. Sponge. We're going to fire one more round. Tools with us in case we break one. Even when we only got one gun, we bring double sets.
Either that or, for the most part, we generally just scratch
Prime.
tape to the black powder on, push down. It has an authenticity in the colonial times. They quite often make good word
You know, there's sometimes when you never get, especially with this, because it's such a high angle, stuff can fall back in there. And there's sometimes you're not sure. The beauty of a mortar is you can see from the front to the back by looking in it. The problem is you're not supposed to look in the barrel. Since I own the gun, there will be times when I will physically look in the barrel because it's my gun and I'm responsible, and I rather look in the barrel to see what's going on rather than have a misfire or a premature ignition. But I won't do that very much. Ready. Ready! Stand by to fire. Fire in the hole! Stop!
We all set now, everybody listen up. We're going to present your mass drop certificate and your council safety card. As I told you, the card is required for council-sponsored or sanctioned events. It's a good thing to have to prove that you've taken a safety course if you're using it outside the council area. But there's no guarantee that it's going to get you into fire in another state.
When you go for your mass license,
when you go
they are impressed by it.
When you go for your mass license or your mass certificate, you've got to have one too. Okay, or you should have one. It impresses the people down here. Okay, before we present your certificates, General Van would like to take a moment and speak to you.
I'd just like to congratulate all of you for being here today on a very windy day, but it's coming up to Patriots Day, and it's something that we all think about, no matter what century we're representing, and no matter what era we're representing. But the one thing to remember is safety comes first, always. It's when you get lax, or you say, gee, I know all about everything, and I know right what I'm doing, you get a little sloppy, that's when you get hurt. This has been proven time and time again in all periods. Luckily and thankfully, and we thank God, that any Massachusetts Council of Minutemen militia unit has never had any serious accident, and actually has never had any type of accident at all, other than people firing muskets with a few little powder burns in their face before we got the flash guards on them. Put the flash guards on, thankfully that has ended as well. But it's all because we always think safety when we're out there, day and night, 24 hours a day. All we need is one accident, just one, ladies and gentlemen. And believe me, you will not be doing this again in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In New Jersey, they lost their right to do anything for a long period of time, and in fact, they're just now starting to get back some of their rights down there with black powder. Just remember, it's a volatile substance. A little commercial. If you so desire, it is an easy matter to become a member of the Massachusetts Council of Minutemen Militia. See Frank Curley, who is our adjutant, Brigadier General, and it's an association which will help all of us to do these things that we like, because we cover all spectrums, from the far right to the far left of the political spectrum. We all have different reasons for being here, but we all have certain goals and certain likes, and it's a great fellowship of people. Some people call it a hobby. I don't. It's more than a hobby. It becomes a way of life after a number of years, and even after a year or two in it. So you meet a lot of nice people, a lot of good people, and have a lot of good times over the years. And if you would like to join the Mass Council, Frank would be glad to talk to you at any time at all. Thank you, and congratulations once again.
Okay, John, stand up here because you're going to present these. As I call your name, come on up and get your certificate and your council safety card. Heather Lounsbury. Matthew McGrath. Oh, this is Musket. Matthew McGrath. Musket. Lloyd Hughes, Musket. Probably the issue. Larry Rice. Sorry, guys. All right. Red Miller Jr.
Squire is around here somewhere.
Fred.
They had to go.
Sir Thomas Blackwell's regiment.
Wiley!
Thank you. Congratulations.
Ed McGarrett, Bedford, Minutemen. Lisa Pearson.
One of the veterans we talk about all the time.
Regiment. James Boyd, Bedford, Minutemen. Mark McGarrett. Mark, here you go.
What? One of those good veterans we always...
Bill Walker, Bedford, Minutemen. Bill, Russ Myers, Blackwell's regiment. John Close, Blackwell's regiment.
God save the king!
John, congratulations. Thank you for coming.
William Hitchcock, Wilmington. Stephen Barrett, Blackwell's regiment.
Congratulations. You're getting into a good, area here. These guys, you know that.
Separate that, will you, John?
I know, it's getting that,
John DeYoung Jr.
Congratulations and thank you.
John, now this has got audit. That's Connecticut Independent Rifles, by the way. There you go. Bill Johnston. Gerald Greeno. Noreen Miller.
You need another bucket of independent rifles.
Thank you, sir.
You need another buttonhole.
Heidi McFarland. Mark McFarland.
Okay, Mark.
Susan Langloy.
Right.
Arlene Greeno.
Have fun.
My God, does anybody mind? Who's taking care of the state of Connecticut? I'm wondering. But the governor, you're proud of him.
That's okay.
Kathleen Fitzpatrick. Huh?
They left David Duke in charge.
Wrong governor.
Good job, Kevin boy.
Bernard Horlacher. Angie Loveland. Matthew Schuyler. Michelle Valier. Did I get it right?
I'm sorry, it's a French name.
Valier.
Yeah.
All right, Diane Bell, I know you.
It's CIRP.
Whoops.
I'm watching from up
And I have Heather Lounsbury. That was a musket. That was a musket. That was my mistake. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, fellas and gals, that, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Safety is #1 because you got to get back to work Monday morning. Otherwise, you can't go out next Friday night. So, be safe. Don't be sorry. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to welcome you aboard USS Constitution, the oldest fully commissioned warship afloat in the world today. My name is Stephen Smith. While you're on board today, please observe the following rules. Stay down off the front of the ship, please. Thank you. 1, while you're on board, please stay together as a group. Don't wander around by yourselves. 2nd, please keep the noise level down because there are other tours going on at the same time. And they'd like to be able to hear their tour guide also. And finally, while you're walking around down below, please watch your heads because the overheads are very low. It's easy to bump them. Watch for overhanging pipes and also misplaced beams. And while you're walking down these ladder wells, also be careful because it's very easy to fall down them because they are very steep. Best way to go down them is either backwards or at an angle, holding on to the ropes to the side. Now the ship's keel was laid just across the harbor at Edmund Hart Shipyard, which is presently the Coast Guard Support Center. That was in 1794. On the 21st of October 1797, she was launched, and she saw her first battles against the French in the Quasi Wars. She then fought to subdue the Barbary pirates in North Africa in the early 1800s, but her most famous battles came in the War of 1812. The
deck we're standing on now is called the spar deck, named after the fact that all of these masts, along with the yard arms, which run horizontally across them, are collectively known as spars. Holding a total of 36 sails, which covered an area of over 42,710 square feet, generated 660 horsepower, and enabled the ship to travel at about 13 knots, which is roughly 15 to 16 miles per hour. Located all the way up forward in the bow of the ship through the two black netted openings is the ship's bathroom, or the head as we call it in the Navy because it was located at the head of the ship. It was located there for two very good reasons. One, in every sailing vessel, winds would blow from aft to forward, blowing on pleasant smells away from the rest of the crew. And secondly, because it is located at the bow of the ship, it rides the roughest through the waves. Therefore, as the waves crash up over the bulwarks up front, it acts as a natural flushing system. On the forward mast and on the main mast, you'll see some spear-shaped objects. Those are called boarding pikes. They were used to repel enemy boarders coming on board the ship. Now as we move a little bit farther forward here, you'll see a large black stovepipe called the Charlie Noble, named after the British merchant who designed it. He also had one on board his vessel. The only difference is that it was made of a highly polished brass. And that was so that even in a crowded harbor, all the men on board his ship could find it very easily. All the way forward, in the forward part of the ship here, you have two large cannons called bow chasers. They were used to chase enemy vessels during a battle, firing a 24-pound cannonball at an effective range of 1,000 yards, and were manned of a gun crew between 9 and 14 men. The rest of the smaller cannons on this deck are called carronades. They were designed in Cairn, Scotland. They fired a 32-pound cannonball at an effective range of 400 yards, were used in close combat, and were very devastating, thus given the nickname Smashers. The small brass bell here is used on board to tell time. Each bell tone signifies that a half hour had gone by, and they're generated in two tones in a total of 8 bells, which means 4 hours. Now, all of our watches are set on a 4-hour basis, so every time you hear 8 bells, your watch is relieved, someone else comes up and takes your place. That's how it was done in the 1800s, that's how it's done today. Any questions about this area of the ship before we go on to the next deck below? Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to go down these ladder wells to the next deck below. When you get down there, you're going to see 2 wooden barrels sitting in the center of the floor. Please gather around those, and that's where the tour is going to continue.